Hello everybody, this is Ron Willauer. We are going through our series on the book of Matthew. We are up to Matthew chapter 6, verse 1. I'm going to start by reading just that verse, then we'll read some verses further on. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. And the first thing I want to point out is this is a little switch or transition from what Jesus was talking about previously. He previously was saying, don't think that I've come to abolish the law, I've come to fulfill it. You've heard that it was said such and such. You've heard old time, but I say unto you. So he was combating the teachings of the scribes and the Pharisees that were lowering the standard of the law and saying, no, here's the real meaning of it. This is what you need to do. This is how to practice the law from the heart. So he's no longer here in this verse talking about the lowering of the standard of the law, but he's talking about the motive of why things are done. So you can be doing the right things, and he goes on to talk about some examples of religious things you could do, but for the wrong motive. I'm reading it again. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Well, doing it in order to be seen means your motive is you want people to think well of you. You want to be considered religious or righteous or whatever. You like the praise of men. So he's saying if you do that, you have your reward. That's your reward is, okay, people think well of you. Well, this means that sorry, here I got distracted by something. I'll get back to it. It's about the motive. You're wanting it to do it for to be noticed, to be recognized, to be thought well of, then you have your reward. So the reward is what you get here in this life. So doing it for those type of reasons is not what Jesus wants. Now, he does say you'll have no reward, but what if you do it in the right motive? Well, it implies you have a reward, and as we read further on, it says that people would be rewarded for doing things from a right heart and a right attitude, but if you're doing it from the wrong attitude, there's no reward. So he gives three examples of what the rewards are. And I'm going to read those, but I'm going to skip what is normally called the Lord's Prayer, because it's in the middle of the example about prayer. And I think it deserves its own session, own video session. So starting in Matthew 6:2, he gives the example of giving to the needy. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So that's pretty straightforward. If you're giving to the needy, why are you doing it? If you give a gift and you get a plaque, you get some kind of interview where, oh, thank you for giving the gift, and that's why you're doing it, then you don't get any reward. Well, your reward is your current recognition. But it does say that if you give in secret, your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So if you do it not for recognition, well, it could be for other reasons that are the wrong motive. If you give to a church, so, oh, you're a big giver, so you can have some pull in the church. Well, that's not a right motive either. But here the motive is recognition. And Jesus really criticized the Pharisees, saying that they loved the praises of man more than the praises of God, and that's what's going on here. So when you give, do it secretly. Don't expect any recognition. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. That's just an extreme way of saying do it in secret. If it's so secret, your left hand doesn't even know what your right hand is doing, you've kept it pretty secret. So that is the first of the three things that are an example. And I want to point out, you'll see this in each of these, it doesn't say if you give to the needy. It says when you give to the needy. So these are really all things that you're expected to do. It's not, it's not so much of an option. So when you give to the needy, it's not an option. That's part of Christianity. That's part of following Jesus, giving to those that are in need. Verse 5, chapter 6. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut your door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So again, he's saying when you pray, pray in secret. Don't pray for recognition. And your Father sees in secret will reward you. Well, praying in the synagogues now, most of us are not Jewish, and there may be some Jewish synagogues that everybody believes in Jesus. I don't know of any. There's Messianic Jews. But synagogue means a gathering. Back in that day, this was Jesus, a Jew, speaking to Jews, and so he'd be talking about praying in the synagogue. So, that's a public gathering of religious peoples. But even in the street corners, well, that's not a religious gathering. That's out in front of everybody to be recognized and seen of others. Oh, this person is really religious. He's really pious. And you want people to think you're somebody. So, no, don't do that. Go and pray in secret. Now, of course, this is a principle. It doesn't mean you can't pray in front of other people. Jesus prayed in front of other people. There's, in the book of Acts, I'd have to look up which chapter, but Acts chapter 4, all the believers were gathered when they had religious leaders that threatened Peter and John and say, grant us boldness and authority and let your hand stretch out and heal. And they were gathered doing that. So, if you can only pray in secret, you can't have prayer meetings. So this is not a absolute ritualistic ceremonial type of requirement. It is a heart attitude thing. So it's not a prohibition of praying in public at all. But the main thing is praying in secret, giving in secret. If you give to the needy, it's pretty hard to do without anybody knowing that you're doing it, unless you're directly giving to someone that's needy and you say, no, don't tell anybody. So it's really more of a heart attitude thing than it is rules and do's and don'ts. So we need to pray in secret. It needs to not be done so everybody will think we're really religious or good or anything. It's the main point. It's the motive of the heart that's involved here. So for now, I'm going to skip what they call the Lord's Prayer and go down to verse 16. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So now he's saying when you fast, do it in secret too. Don't look like you're really hungry and look real sad and all those things, but do things to prick your face up. Look like you just had a good meal or something. So anyhow, that's another observance that you could do to look religious in front of other people. And just pointing out, again, it says when you fast, not if you fast. So giving to the poor, praying and fasting are really considered things that we should do as Christians, even fasting. It's not oh, you're super spiritual, you fast. We all should fast, and it's an expected thing. Again, it's not rules and do's and don'ts. They got on Jesus for saying, well, John the Baptist and his disciples fast, but you and your disciples don't. Well, Jesus did fast. It's recorded, when he started his ministry, he fasted 40 days. That's quite a fast. But I don't know whether he fasted any more than that. If he did it secretly, I guess, applying this. So my point is, even though I'm saying when you fast, this is not a matter of, okay, let's find out who's not fasting and get on their case. That's not how it is. So it's just a motive of not doing what you do for the praise of men. Well, what's so bad about that is the question that comes to my mind is, why is that bad? Hey, you do things before people and they appreciate you, and why not? I mean, you got your reward then. Hey, maybe that's a nice reward, and if you think about that, I've got some verses that I think go towards that idea here. Why is that such a problem, really? And we'll switch to those here. First one is Isaiah 42:8, which says, I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not give my glory to another, nor my praise to graven images. So God he won't give his glory to others. I think some translations say, I won't share my glory. Well, God is really the only one that is worth praise and honor going to. Well, the Bible says to honor each other, so again, it's not an absolute, but as far as the glory that belongs to God, it is an absolute. He is the only one that's good. There's none good but God, Jesus said. And when you try to show yourself as being good before other people to make yourself feel good, you're taking the role of God to some extent. You're taking his glory. And that's really why it's an issue, because we're supposed to view ourselves like the parable that Jesus gave of the publican or tax collector and the sinner, and how the sinner beat his chest and said, I'm not worthy, please forgive me. Whereas I'm sorry, I got to kind of switch. It was the tax collector. Sorry, I'm still right. The Pharisee, the person that thought he was righteous, said, thank God that I'm not like this tax collector. I tithe, I fast, I do all these things, and there's that contrast. Well, there's the attitude of, if there's nobody good but God, you can't have an attitude that you're good. You can't have an attitude that you need to be appreciated for being good. Except for what God has done in you, there's nothing good. So that's really where I'm coming from, why I think it's really a big problem. This next passage I have up here from Luke 17, verses 7 to 10 says, which of you having a slave plowing or tending sheep will say to him, when he has come in from the field, come immediately and sit down to eat? But will he not say to him, prepare something for me to eat, and properly clothe yourself and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterward you may eat and drink? He does not thank the slave because he did the things which were commanded, does he? So you too, when you do all the things which are commanded you, say, we are unworthy slaves, we have only done that which we ought to have done. Well, here the point is just, if you pray, that's just what's required of you. If you give to the poor, that's just what's required of you. If you fast, that's just what's required of you. Why do you want to get any credit for that? Why do you want people to think highly of you for that, for just doing the minimum? Well, God's standard is such that being perfect is the minimum. And there's nothing higher than that. That's just how high you have to go. So to think you get any credit for doing what you're supposed to do and people should appreciate you, that's wrong thinking, isn't it? It's just, oh, well, I'm just doing what God tells me I'm supposed to do. So I think a key thing here is this next verse. It says, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the boastful pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. Well, the boastful pride of life it fits right into that. It's like, look how good I am. Isn't that pride? It's boasting in a way, maybe not with words, but with your actions to show people that you're really something. So that's the heart behind doing religious things, so people think well of you, is just the boastful pride of life. So that's really why Jesus, I think, was saying, don't do things in front of people to be seen by them. You have your reward. Well, yeah, getting their appreciation is your reward, but I'm just saying there's a much deeper thing than that, because we're the creation, not the creator, and it's all about him, not about us, and he's to get all glory, and our life is to be all about him. And when that's the case, why are you even trying to draw attention to yourself? So I think that's the point. Now, as I said, we skipped the Lord's Prayer because that should be at least a whole session to itself, and it looks like we'll get to that next time. Thank you. Goodbye.